Good morning and welcome to another edition of Free Association Radio. You're listening to 15 Minutes of Flame on the Robert Phoenix Show. And hey, what's happening out there? It's a beautiful day. Another beautiful day. We had that massive, turbulent, biblical crash between two weather systems, two weather fronts on Saturday. Literally, what it was a massive cold front coming down from Minnesota and Canada and hitting a very warm Gulf front coming up from the Gulf of Mexico, and we were right in the middle of it. Boy, was it crazy. Speaking of crazy, I'm here to kind of go over what happened yesterday on May Day. Did our little May Day show, and I went over different events, various events. We had a lot of violence across the country. May Day protests, more than 40 arrests were made, nationwide marches. Oh, look at this. Wow, that's pretty interesting. I just typed in May Day on Google, and my show, 15 Minutes of Flame, May Day, May Day, May Day, is listed number 1. I got to get a screen grab of this. This is good. I'm liking this. Check. This is. I've never seen this before. Not with my stuff. Let's do this. Look at that. Maybe it's all about the tags. There it is. I'll put that up on Facebook for everybody to see. So there was a lot that went down yesterday. It was brought to my attention, and I actually knew this since I am an astrologer, and I am familiar with Israel's chart. Yesterday is the Independence Day of Israel. Also on May Day. How could it not be? Right? How could it not be? Workers of the world, unite. Unite. So we have May Day protests turned violent in Portland. Now, they can't have a Rose Day parade, but they'll have a May Day parade. Yeah. May Day protests turned violent Monday in Portland, Oregon, where police canceled protest permits. So you can get a permit for a protest on May Day, but you can't have a Rose parade in Portland. Numerous people were arrested and used gas and non-lethal weapons against demonstrators whom they described as anarchists. They've taken over Portland. Portland has become a beachhead for the Antifa, anarchist, communist, socialist, Zionist rabble. And their main goal is to destroy everything about Portland that made it Portland and turn it into an occupied territory. That's what's happening. Rallies began at noon in Portland. Police reported that members of an anarchist group began throwing rocks, lead balls, full cans of soda, glass bottles, and incendiary devices late in the afternoon. Authorities canceled parade and protest permits at about 4:30 p.m. If you do not need to come to downtown Portland, please stay away, police said as firefighters struggled to reach multiple blazes. They were setting things on fire. May Day is now considered a riot. How about that? Broken windows outside Target store in downtown Portland. I don't know why they're targeting a Target, because Target has supported the bathroom agenda. Don't they know? Aren't they aware of how politically correct Target is? Target's lost a lot of customers based on their stupid bathroom decision. Police would confirm only that at least 3 people had been arrested, but NBC affiliate KGW reported that many more people could be seen detained lying on the street. Organizers told KGW that they didn't believe the self-described anarchists intended to spur violence. Oh, really? They are doing their own thing. They're just doing their own thing. They're the anarchists. We, on the other hand, have an agenda, and we're doing our own thing. According to Lily Elby, spokeswoman for the Portland May Day Coalition, in Seattle, the scene of routinely tense protests ever since riots protesting the World Trade Organization put the city at the forefront of liberal activism in 1999. Police said they were expecting multiple unpermitted events through the evening. Police in riot gear monitoring the protests moved in on bicycles to separate groups supporting and opposing President Donald Trump at downtown Seattle's busy pedestrian Westlake Park. South of Seattle in Olympia, where I lived for 2 years, a great place to live, by the way. The state capitol, police said Monday night that protesters were targeting officers and journalists with rocks, bottles, and pepper spray. Some were using slingshots to propel rocks. This is a riot, the police department said. We are ordering the mob to disperse, and if you do not disperse, you are subject to arrest. At least 8 people have been detained by 7:45. Mob is breaking windows on businesses. Leave the area, be subject to arrest. This mob is trying to harm people. We are engaging. That's a tweet from the Olympia police. It is such a quiet city. It is probably one of the most politically correct cities in the country without being overtaken or being the subject of a coup like Portland has been. You have to keep in mind that Evergreen College is not far from Olympia, one of the most liberal colleges in the country, along with Santa Cruz, University of Santa Cruz, a college that does not give grades. Matt Groening from The Simpsons is a graduate. And the name of their mascot is the Gooey Duck. What more do you need to know about Evergreen? More than a dozen demonstrators were arrested outside J.P. Morgan Chase on Park Avenue in New York City on Monday morning. NBC New York reported, but rallies at Bryant Park, Union Square Park, and Washington Square Park were peaceful. In Oakland, 4 people were arrested after they chained themselves to the front doors of the Alameda County Administration Building, demanding that the county change how it works with federal immigration officials. Police in riot gear moved in and detained at least 1 person in Montreal Monday as an anti-capitalist march deteriorated, with projectiles flying through the air. In downtown Grand Rapids, it was largely shut down as a 4-hour march made its way slowly through the city. One of the largest protests was planned for Los Angeles, where tens of thousands of people were expected. We are being challenged like never before, and we have to step up to the plate and deal with the situation and offer some hope to the community. Juan Jose Gutierrez, coordinator of the Full Rights for Immigrants Coalition. Thousands gathered in New York and Los Angeles. They were burning effigies of Trump in Philadelphia. So there were 14 arrests that were made in Olympia alone. How about that? What else do we have here on May Day? Let me just see. Let me scan quickly. About here. Well, that's crazy that my blog post or my radio post showed up number 1. Maybe it was the May Day, May Day, May Day. Kind of amazing, actually. What else did we have on May Day yesterday? So all in all, 25 people were arrested in Portland. Yep, you can have a May Day protest and a May Day parade, and you can burn businesses down. They attacked businesses in downtown Olympia. These are not, your box lot stores. They're just not. They're just average people trying to run a business, trying to have a life. And these a-holes who hate everything decided to cause a lot of damage. And make their insurance rates go up. It sucks. Well, here in Austin, oh, by the way, it's 9/11. Here in Austin, we had our own little thing. Now, of course, they'll have some May Day protests somewhere. Austin is a fairly liberal town. But yesterday on the UT campus, we had a stabbing. We had a stabbing on May Day. And the guy who, so here's what happened. I'm on my computer, and I get a notice from somebody on Facebook who asks if I'm safe with the stabbings. Of course I'm safe. I mean, it's nice to ask, don't get me wrong. But of course I'm safe. So I got on the internet and I looked around and, oh my God, we got an event. We have an event happening in Austin. And on further review and digging down, there were a few injuries. At least 3 people were injured. And I saw some of the footage. And this looked like a very real event to me. This did not look like a staged false flag event. I saw a guy with a wound on his shoulder. It was bleeding. There was blood on the ground. So this was unlike a lot of the other events where you don't see any blood and it's all very controlled. There were lots of witnesses. And the guy, the perp, was named, is named Kendricks, Kendrex, probably named after Eddie Kendricks, the singer. Kendricks White, White. Kendricks White was not white. He's a black American. And his bio is very unusual. He's from Killeen, Texas, and his father was ding, 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 ding in the Army, because there's a big base near Killeen. Everybody described Kendricks as funny, outgoing, always clowning around, bright, sunny personality. And there's plenty of pictures of Kendricks on the internet, which actually will support that narrative of who Kendricks is. I went to his Facebook page. He hasn't posted in 2 years, but nice photos with him and his girlfriend. Cute selfies. So there was somebody who died, and his name was Harrison Brown. So we have a young man who is white American, named Brown, and we have a black American named White. So we have this interesting convergence of brown and white and brown. You can't make this stuff up sometimes. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's just this kind of strange, high-strain synchronistic duality trip at play. And he was using a large Bowie knife. Get ready to have the size of knives scaled back in this country. Get ready. No knife will be long. They won't allow a knife to be longer than maybe 6 inches or 5 inches or whatever. That's coming. Knife manufacturers are going to have to scale back the length of their knives. Now, what's unusual is that this guy was studying to be a doctor, this Kendricks White. And he took a month off from school. He was a student there. He was not some kind of a vagrant. He didn't live on the east side and, wandered into the UC campus. Well, this is the second stabbing they've had there since I've been here. I think the last one was about 1.5 years ago, where a young woman who was in the band or the choir or something like that, she was killed. And she was killed by a young black male who had a history of mental illness. And Kendricks White was arrested about 2 months ago, I believe, maybe 3 months ago, and he was arrested under the influence of alcohol, and he took what he called two happy pills, also known as Zoloft. So we know he was on SSRIs. We know that he's from Killeen, Texas. We know that his father's in the military. Now, just because your father's in the military doesn't mean that there is some diabolical work going on. Although we cannot rule it out because this guy acted like a Manchurian Candidate, but a Manchurian Candidate with, guess what, a religious twist. Now, there is a whole spate of strange religious, bizarre, motivated acts happening around the world. In Jerusalem, people will go to Jerusalem and they will have these, they'll be overcome by this spirit where they will pretend that they're Jesus. And they'll take their bed sheets from the hotel and they'll put their bed sheets on and they'll walk around Jerusalem like they're Jesus. I mean, this happens fairly frequently. And they call it the Jerusalem effect. Now, Aaron Hernandez recently, in his solitary cell, hanged himself with a bedsheet. And I talked with a client friend who is used to be a nurse inside the prison system in Washington State or Oregon, I forget which one, but it's up there in the Northwest. Anyway, she told me that it's very hard, very difficult to hang yourself with a sheet. And yet, there he was with John 3:16 and all this. He had the Illuminati scrawled on his wall and the all-seeing eye. I mean, there was this mishmash of strange symbolism and the death of Aaron Hernandez on Patriots Day. Very strange. Highly strange. And there are more of these events that have been taking place around the country and around the world. And the latest being Kendrick White. Now, he started to go off recently in the last few weeks talking about Yeshua and God, and he started to get very extreme. And when they arrested him, he had a shawl around his neck that had letters written in Hebrew on it. So he went on some kind of unholy killing spree, all in the name of Yeshua, which of course, this is not what God wants. This is not what God does. This is an absolute perversion, although there are a lot of people that would say religion itself, the Abrahamic religions, are a perversion, and to that I would say, for the most part, they're right. However, that is the pageant, that is the fiction, that is the narrative of bondage, end times bondage, that is being broadcast and has been ever since Schofield took over the Bible. But anyway, this is what's going on now. And it reminds me of this movie that I saw back in the 1970s. And the movie at the theater was called Demon. Demon. But it was later renamed to God Told Me To. And the guy who created the movie was a guy by the name of, I think his name was Larry Cohen. And the premise of the film is that there is these strange events where people are shooting and acting out just like the Jerusalem effect. And they have said that God told them to do that. Now, they didn't get all scriptury and versery, although it's been a while since I've seen the movie. I think I actually own a copy of the DVD, if I'm not mistaken. I have to check my DVD section. But I remember as a teenager being really struck by this movie. And there's a guy who is an investigator on the New York Police Department, played by Tony LoBianco, tough-nosed New York detective, and he's looking into these strange, religiously fueled acts of death and violence, so on and so on, etc. And he finds that these various individuals have been contacted by somebody. And there's he finds that there's a board of directors, or a group of men who sit on a number of different boards at a high level of business who have had contact with this being, who is an avatar in the world teacher, according to them. And he tracks this guy down. And he finds out that this guy is his brother. And that his mother had been impregnated by an extraterrestrial species. It gets really crazy, okay? But it's an interesting movie. So they're actually related. And there's a very bizarre scene where the brother, who is like cloaked in light, he's got blonde hair and very etheric. Let's put it that way. And he says to Tony LoBianco's character, "Hey, we could have a child together. I am equipped for both." And it's a crazy scene. And he pulls his cloak away, and you see his female parts. So this guy is actually, in a lot of ways, a manifestation of Baphomet, his brother or half-brother. And Tony LoBianco freaks out, and he whacks him right on that very sensitive spot. Then a fight ensues, and Tony LoBianco winds up killing his evil twin, or brother. So we have the Abel-Cain myth being played out again. Enki, Enlil, all the other brother twin Gemini myths from across the globe in time. And the last scene of the movie is where he goes into this nightclub, or not even a club, a bar in uptown New York. Dangerous place. Place no white boy would want to go. He goes into this bar, and these guys are like, "Hey man, let's get this guy. He doesn't belong here." So they go after him, and he uses these newfound powers. Like, this one guy slits his own throat and stuff. It's a pretty gruesome movie in some ways. But now all of a sudden he's got all these powers, and that's the end of the movie because the power is transferred to Tony LoBianco. Anyway, the reason I bring it up is because it's a very similar theme in some ways that got put together in this movie in the 1970s called Demon or God Told Me To. And now we have this version of it happening now. Whether it's the Jerusalem effect or Kendrick's White, and on May Day, it actually kind of accentuated it. However, because of all the different protests and violence and so on, it might have gotten a bit drowned out by the nationwide drama. Speaking of drama, Gayle King called Ivanka Trump Mrs. Kushner. A bit of a put down. And Ivanka, in her unflappable way, you could tell, like during the interview, you could just look at Gayle King, and she's like just shooting daggers at Ivanka Trump, just shooting daggers at her because she was close. They were close to, she was close to the Obamas and Michelle, and now this interlopers in the White House. And I get it. I mean, Ivanka's so perfect, you kind of want to slap her a little bit, just because she's so perfect. She says all the right things. And yes, it's been such a fine time moving into the White House. We don't get to see each other much, but when we do, it's quality time. And yes, I know I've traveled around the world a lot, and it's exhausting, but, I feel really honored to be there to serve our country. It's of course. But do you ever wonder what these people say to each other when the cameras aren't on? I'd love to hear those conversations. The NSA has. They've got all that stuff. All right, well, we've got about 4 minutes left. We're going to do a hard 30 minutes today. And, the world is going to spin. It is going to keep spinning, and it's going to keep spinning out of control. And a lot of people are going to, Try to figure out what's going on and what's up and what's down and what's in and what's out and what's right and what's wrong and what's evil, what's good, what's light and what's dark. And it's going to get harder and harder and harder and harder and harder to understand that. It's going to get more and more difficult as everything will become mixed up and miscegenated. And there will be no center, at least on the outside. So the internal center is going to be vital. Extremely vital. So I guess the best thing that you can do and I can do is to maintain our center dietarily, physically, sleep-wise. I was listening to an interview with Catherine Austin Fitz and on Jeff Friends. It's a really great interview. She did 2 recently in the last month. I highly recommend them. And she said there's going to be a point in time where we will get through this. And there will be something on the other side, which I agree. And I don't think it will be the New World Order. Or if it does resemble the New World Order, it will not stand. It will be a very temporary, very flimsy sort of alliance. And, try to control 7 billion people. Good luck with that. Try to control 7 billion people and corral them into a system. Likely they'd have to eliminate about 4 billion, maybe 5 billion, maybe 6 billion, maybe 6.5 billion, as the Georgia Guidestones would like to do. And then it becomes much more manageable. But she talks about how do we get from here to there, from here to the other side. And what is our quality of life going to be like in that stretch, in that interim? And that's really the biggest thing that we have to deal with right now is that quality of life and to maintain it to the best of our ability. And to do whatever you can in order to stay close to that center, that sacred place inside of yourself, the things that matter. And we have to affirm them and reaffirm them every day. It's got to be an act of discipline, because we're going to be the ones that will hold it and anchor it, and it will be our gravitational pull to the other side. And that's where we're at. So whatever you can do to build your faith, fuel your faith in yourself, your fellow humans, your family, your community, the galactic center, God, whatever you can do to fuel that and anchor it, I would highly recommend it. Make it a lifestyle choice. All right, that's it for today's 15 Minutes of Flame. I'm Robert Phoenix. I'll be back 24 hours from today. Use your head to discern what's real and your heart to open what's possible. Here's the outro. Happy post-May Day.